we're on. We're live from
Welcome
survivalist
to
shelters.
Yeah.
yeah.
The shelter.
At least some of
Everybody's
us.
hunkering and bunkering,
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
thunkering.
in your extra bunker, Bjorn.
You're in my spare bunker, indeed.
Yeah.
Bianca?
The spare bunker.
Bianca.
Spare bunker, love it. Yeah, man. I mean, that's what it's there for. To house people.
Everything you know, I spent the morning moving water around from the rainwater collection and getting through filters, and then using some of the filtered water to boil water on the stove here to make coffee and soup. And then I used the heat of the stove to dry my socks, which I washed in the sink earlier. This stove is going for me, man. It's awesome.
Very cool. Nice. Back to washing socks in the sinks and shit. So what you should know about that is that water that comes through that sink and down that drain is going to go right to the front stairway and behind the metal screen there that's cut off and exposed. So it's just pouring down. If it's not too much water, it's not going to do much bad. But if you're like use. Yeah.
Are you saying like his socks are like potentially so dirty that they're gonna kill things?
Now there's some water coming up behind the stairs, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. It might finally kill the field mice. Maybe that's the end result.
Actually,
that'd be great.
I have a couple of them now.
Good. All right.
I found them afterwards in traps.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear. Well,
it's pretty cozy. It's and good. We got lights. We got Wi-Fi. What's not to like?
Shit's popping.
Yeah.
Popping in the GC. The guest cabin.
I was just saying before we started. Over the last week, it's been really interesting to see, like, calling my friends kind of across the country. I have family in Texas, and I've lived kind of all over the place. So I've checked in Nashville, LA, New York, San Francisco, obviously Seattle, South Texas, Austin. And it was interesting to see that, like, New York and the Bay Area and LA and Seattle really taking the virus and the spread really seriously pretty early on.
Okay.
But hearing from people in Texas and Tennessee, for example, they didn't have the same kind of perspective for the first, like, say, 5, 6, 7 days of this whole kind of transaction over the last and a half. What's been really interesting and notable is by around Saturday or Sunday until, leading into today, that tone has shifted across the country to I speak to anybody, no matter where they are, the first topic and the only topic is this virus and quarantine and what happens next, how long will this last, etc. Like, there's no federal order necessarily right now for shelter in place, but there are county shelters in place for every city, every town I just mentioned, every state. Everyone at this point.
Yeah, now, that's wild.
Wow.
You want to think but everyone's supposed to be at this point across the country. It's top of mind. Everyone's focused.
I can't imagine it not being.
Oh shit! Whoa. In the darkness.
That's ominous. Well, it's just like we're talking.
Sorry, let me turn on the proper figure light. 1 second.
But Mishak, I'm glad everybody's now taking it on the serious tip.
So here's a way. Oh,
go
ahead. I'm always interrupting. It's like my job.
No, you're good. Go for it.
So a way that I was thinking about spinning this viral topic, since we're going to talk about it, was to do a little bit of like a thought project or a thought work it out, a theory or a set of theories on what would happen. Let's do like 100-year projection if viral threat remains high and doesn't really, like, maybe like we have cessations of really how high it is from time to time, but there's kind of this overwhelming continuous presence of this virus and other viruses that are just staying out there. What's the world look like in 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 years?
If this virus were to, like, let's say, just keep up and
or like a virus like it, or a family of viruses that come from this, the threat to humans is continuous.
Just like every year it was the same as this year kind of thing?
Yeah, or like even more than just for a portion of the year. It was, we expected things in the spring and we expected things in the fall, and we, I don't know.
I mean, so how far out are we talking?
100 years.
I was thinking, walking it through like every 20 years, like what might
do every 20 years.
Sci-fi it out. You know what I mean?
Well, just to think out loud, like whoever's still kicking is going to be working on a vaccine, right? So no matter how long it lasts, the strain would have to be constantly evolving, right? The virus itself would have to have enough traction and enough kind of contagious properties to be spreading fast enough and evolving fast enough to outrun our vaccines, or to be killing humans fast enough that that outruns our vaccines, right? That it just evolves quickly enough to kill larger and larger groups of people. On the flip side, we could be playing a game of whack-a-mole forever from this point forward on new vaccines, just like the flu. But it's now a part of the process where you're getting vaccinated all the time. You're just constantly being fucking vaccinated. You're on like universal health care to deal with your side effects from being vaccinated, but the vaccines are necessary because you'll die otherwise. We don't know what the fuck's out there, right? And they're constantly updating the vaccines, and it's just everybody on board. Like I could see kind of like, but humans are going to fight this in some way, this kind of thing in some way, and put all the technology, all of the economics behind it in some way. The question is are we faster than the virus? Are we faster than evolution and then viral evolution, right? If you project out 100 years, you kind of have to make the assumption one way or the other. Will humans win that race or not? Because that's enough time that they could lose the race, right? Mm-hmm. So the question is, are there humans in 100 years? If this virus evolves quickly, if this kind of virus can evolve this quickly globally and shut everything down out of nowhere and last long enough before we have a vaccine regularly, like can humans evolve, vaccines fast enough to be? But 100 years is enough for us, if we lost that battle, for us to be gone.
Well, but I wonder, there's got to be some people who are isolated enough that they would still be around. You know what I mean? Even if something like that killed off like all of modern society, there's some, group of people somewhere in a super remote place.
Like the International Space Station.
Oh, first of all, we'd probably send some specimens into space for sure to come back and repopulate. I think you're right about the
isolating more.
Do you think we don't have that already? Don't you think there would be somewhere in an International Space Station just a little ice chest full of like sperm and eggs? Like, don't you think there's got to be?
The trick is that they have to be shielded hella well, because up there, you got all sorts of gamma rays and other shit zipping around. So everything needs shielding, and sex cells in particular don't have much shielding whatsoever naturally from those things, and they'll mutate hella crazy or die. So they got to have super special coolers, yeah.
Well, I bet you they might have.
But Rob, what were you saying?
Wow, probably not as something as important as that. Oh well, okay, yeah. Well, I just was saying, I, in general, just think even in a scenario where everyone dies, it's possible that you could have some people on Earth, whatever. But that's just kind of an anecdote. Yeah. I think I don't know if it's a direct answer to the question or not, but I think it's kind of like at every stage it has one or two or more directions that things could go, but generally they fall into the positive and negative side, and it's like right now, you know what I mean? Even in the next few months, like let's say China looked at the situation and said, we can really, like, these guys are vulnerable as fuck right now, like we can come in and do whatever cyber, like what if a foreign enemy used a cyber attack on some infrastructure right now, some of the essential services that are remaining, you know what I mean? Like, especially the internet. Like if the internet was turned off all of a sudden, we'd be pretty much quadruple fucked, you know what I mean? And so I think, then there's natural disasters and there's just poor handling of shit by the fucking dumbass president. I mean, fuck, you can't get dumber than this guy. And it's obvious and it's ruining the world, but so be it. But he might make a really dumb decision and make things worse too. And then there's the thought of it's an election year.
Right, he definitely will.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, like, in the model that probably is like pretty fixed. Yeah. But then is there going to be an election? So there's like we're at this weird juncture in history where the whole show, the whole globe is like a jump ball. You know what I mean? Like it kind of is, and it's hard to imagine what happens. You know what I mean from here. So
well, it's like
I just think in the 100-year question, it's fun to think about it almost like what's 100 years from now if shit goes real bad soon, outside of like the virus necessarily doing it, but just this set of ingredients. And then there's like what Mishak said, the virus goes, or viruses or whatever, kill everyone off. That's one thing too. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't suggesting that I put them together. I'm just saying that like that was just my training project.
I know. I mean, you just covered that base basically.
I think that's both guys have very good points about the potentialities, and I think that I'm definitely in the camp of the social fallout from this sort of a thing, especially when the reaction is such that really giving we're giving thrones to potential kings. We're kind of handing a thumbs up to autocratic solutions. And interestingly enough, the countries who are taking the most autocratic, like, no, we're stopping this right now approach, are having the most success.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's kind of what you're getting to with that, and with the scene for people to want to make moves internationally against others. There is no better time than this. And then you get, this climate change century that we're entering now too.
That's a whole other point. Yeah.
Right. So we got this like triumvirate, our own social issues in politics and international geopolitics, viruses and health issues that want to destroy us, and the environment. And they're all, red dot on the forehead of humanity sort of situations. It just, I think there's going to be people who live in 100 years, and I think there'll be a lot of people who live in 100 years. I think that we'll see reductions in population, probably similarly to the fallout from climate change, starvation, refugee crises that come from it, that help, like viruses finding those camps of people in hot, humid conditions and fucking festering all sorts of people from all the even common old diseases and things, people dying from, dysentery and fucked up stomach things, like that sort of shit's going to be coming around. Anyways, like, I think that you just kind of, like, if you let that imaginative, like, line of thinking about it going bad because of these things, it can go real bad in the next 20, and it can stay that way for a while, unless there's a holdout, unless there's a bastion, unless there's a part of the world that can kind of survive this. And interestingly, because it's going to take military, science, money, and all those things, and isolation, North America is potentially one of the best ways to do it. There's only 3 main federal governments here to coordinate with and create kind of an island effect for North America, right? And that's far better than any other continental landmass has, as far as, simplified geopolitics, right? Anyways, like if that sort of action is needed, I think we're in a country that has at least all of the engines to turn on to get through it.
Well, I think one thing that just sorry, Mishak.
But
Oh, well, the lack of leadership is so beyond just a thing you say.
True.
It's like, look, somebody, if they were a real leader, and it's still totally void in the entire world, weirdly, which would allow for a lot of interesting things. Yeah. But somebody needs to be real as fuck. Like Andrew Cuomo or whatever. He's interesting. He's somewhat real, but he's still kind of like a pompous type of dude, and he's not really expressing like much more than a articulate description of the problem, rather than and some tangible solution fixes. But I don't see him like charting a course for society or even New York beyond just getting through it, which is fine. But it just leaves open the slot for somebody to say, look, and it could be to the whole world rather than to the country. Like, we're all vulnerable to this. We're all equal. No, you know what I mean? Like, we all would expect that if one country had the cure, they'd share it with the rest of us. We all basically have these expectations that this is one world.
Yeah.
We need to attack this problem as one world. Isn't it time that we created, a one world government of sorts? You know what I mean? And just depending on what that vision looks like, I think a lot of people, kind of what you were saying of like authoritarian solutions sounding a lot more attractive now. I think a one world government equally or more,
That's kind of what I was going to say is what we're kind of hinting at is right now is such a vulnerable opportunity for everyone, for the entire world. It's vulnerable in the sense that, like you said, Rob, it affects every human who has a body, regardless of class and race and color and geolocation, whatever. It's just about exposure. But because of the situation that we're in, especially the American situation with having responded so late in the game and having such a hard time actually enforcing any kind of federal rules. Like, I talked to a friend in India last night, and India just went on lockdown.
Right.
And that India's on lockdown. And I asked him, what does that mean? He was like, well, my town's on lockdown for 5 days. And I said, so what's available? He was like, essential services, gas, groceries, that kind of thing. Well, it turns out in India, what that means is that you can't use any type of transportation. You have to walk if you're going anywhere. And if you're going to a store of any kind, there'll be soldiers on the corner that will ask you which store you're going to, and they'll ask you your address, and they'll check their map, and they'll confirm if that's the closest store to your address, and if it's not, they'll point you in another direction.
Okay.
Wow.
Like, town by town by town, locked the fuck down. And I was like, what happened? Did you guys have like some crazy outbreak? He said, we've had 500 cases across India.
Yeah.
so far.
Yeah.
However, we're just starting to really test.
Yeah.
What I thought of when I heard that was a video that I saw. I don't know if I shared it with you guys. This viral video that has, at the time when I saw it, it had 2 or 3 million views. This guy with tattoos up his neck walking through Walmart, videoing himself, saying, "I just got out of testing. I'm confirmed positive coronavirus. I've been to the gas station. I went to, the donut shop. I went through McDonald's. Now I'm in Walmart. When I'm done here, I'm going to go to this other place. If you're old and you got a weak immune system, fuck you. You shouldn't be out right now. I'm not going to stay in my home. I got shit to do."
Wow. That's pleasant. No, I didn't see that. But.
Jesus fucking Christ. No.
So what I said to a boss, my friend, is America is not set up for that. America is not set up to just shut it down, to just tell everybody, I don't care what you do, go to the fucking side. That right there is the fuse for serious conflict in a lot of places in America.
Oh, yeah.
So
right, yeah.
That's the problem, is we can't slow it down without changing culture.
Yeah, but I think this is where, it's kind of cliche, but I think what could work and what you see working in certain ways is just a social, like the right messaging resonating the right way with people, so and that's why I feel like there's such a lack of leadership. But it's like, if somebody who was a real leader just were to say, like, here's the reality, like, because part of it is just the darkness of it. Like, people don't in those positions want to tell you, like, okay, if we don't do this now, this is going to happen. Like, fuck whether this is citing, this scholar or that study. Just, you see this graph, like, you see how this went, like, just show multiple examples, explain to people, because they're not believing it. They don't see it. They don't understand what the consequence is, because they're more worried about what the symptoms are for them, not thinking, hey, if I have just an accident and, cut open my arm or whatever, I'm not going to be able to go to the hospital because it's going to be overwhelmed. You know what I mean? Like, people aren't thinking, I don't think, or a lot of people aren't, of the whole picture. They're just like, oh, I'm young or I'm healthy and they tell me that I'm okay, so I don't see anybody who's older, I don't care. So, like, all these excuses in those people's heads, but they're not real. And if someone could speak to those people in the right way, I think you might see a country like a democracy or whatever actually be as capable or more than an authoritarian country. Because it could be that then people, just like now you're seeing, like, people doing homemade masks and shit like that, which is awesome. It's like, that's probably less likely to pop up in one of those authoritarian countries. So if the solution or part of the solution comes from ingenuity and creativity, it might still be on the side of quote unquote free society. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I feel that. I think, unfortunately, we inhabit this country that still has a shit ton of libertarians walking around. As much as they might be crickets on their libertarianism when they get that $1,000 check from the government, and how else the fuck they think anything like a pandemic virus, is going to be solved without social practices and getting together, having things like, health systems, etc. But yes, I just think there's so many of those people in our country, like this guy who's gonna fucking flaunt it and fuck with us. And we have strengths in democracy. There's no question we can get a ton of stuff done. People who want to work, who are eager to help build the machine, always make a better machine. And democracy has that if it's done right, over most other forms of government. But I think that we have this kind of unique, just so individualistic hatred for anybody else type of mentality in this country. It's so fucking weird. And like, The Tiger King, for instance, is a great example of people who are just all out for themselves and fuck everybody else, fuck these tigers, fuck their health. Oh, it's basically swept the country like the coronavirus, I think, by this point, right, Rob?
I guess
Tiger
I hear
King?
about it. I haven't seen it, but I've heard a lot about it.
Seen it.
Nah,
Yeah,
but the nation surely has, because they're with it. The Flawedcast Nation kind of stays right on the cusp of what's happening in the United States.
It's a show about a tiger owner, breeder, seller. This guy who's a crazy human being from Oklahoma. He has 2 husbands. Owns a fucking giant zoo with 200 and something tigers in it, and makes country music videos that are like so A quality humor, like ran for governor and got like 20%. Like, dude's a character. Anyway, so it's about him. Okay.
Yeah, that's
some
interesting.
New data?
Oh, I just will share a link in the comments or something. It's just a website a kid, like a high school kid in somewhere in the region in Seattle or maybe Mercer Island, did, that has live updated data about the virus and its impact around the world. So it has the numbers for India, which appear to be like 664 or something. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, boom! There you go. Yeah, we don't.
Small.
There's the link. We don't even have to put it somewhere. Flawedcast Nation is really with it. They can follow along.
And this is today.
As of today, cumulative.
Cases.
7,000 dead in Italy. Holy shit!
I know, and that's crazy because look at that. 3,287 in China and 7,503 in Italy.
They had a 10% mortality rate in Italy. That seems so different, right?
Right.
That's crazy.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it's like, fuck.
So recovered in New York, 1%.
New York is out of control. It is so crazy.
32,000. What's out of control is because they've been testing far more aggressively than any other state. Like you guys should definitely check out the daily podcast episode where they talk about New Rochelle. If you haven't, and Flawedcast Nation, you should check it out.
Okay.
The amount of testing just in New Rochelle dwarfs everything else going on in the country. Like New York is insane trying to test everyone. They've already put out a 14-day notice that if you've been in New York in the last 14 days, you should be on self-quarantine for the next 4.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely testing, but it's also, I mean, they're not, it's just also the density. On Saturday, they were 11,675 confirmed cases. So since Saturday, it's Wednesday now, they've jumped 2/3.
So they're listing
tripled it.
840 serious cases and 300 deceased. Just
yeah,
I know. And Washington, is growing a little bit slower, and I don't know, what that means. Like, is it going to continue to grow slower, or is it about to explode? Is it the testing availability just being much more in New York? Perhaps. But I mean, I heard multiple interviews with people in New York who were talking about how difficult the testing has been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's like, it's not like it's super easy to get over there.
92% recovery.
Yeah.
We were talking about like dictators and other style leaders coming to power through these sorts of manipulations. But like so there's this grand conspiracy idea set that comes about kind of every time we have an interaction like this, Pearl Harbor has it, JFK has it, 9/11 has it. I tend to kind of find a lot of those historically in hindsight to have a lot of merit. Even the sinking of the Lusitania, that was the Germans told everybody don't do that, and we don't really tend to cover that. But the virus name itself, Corona, for crown, kind of goes hand in hand with the idea of king making, and I just thought that was a interesting circumstance in all of this.
It's a fantastic time to flip.
To what?
It's a fantastic time to flip a dynasty.
Or to seed one.
To change global powers. It's an ideal time for from a historic purpose to totally shift, and for the globe to kind of choose a new global leader. Which is exactly what's terrifying, because the nations who are primed to take that on are terrifying.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean,
including the U.S.
Yeah, right. But it seems like China is just in such a pleasant position in all this right now. You know what I mean? Every country's locked down, so nobody's coming in and out from outside anymore, maybe with some limitation. But they've got some degree of a handle on that. It seems they've been able to flatten the curve, as it were. And they're scientifically and technologically and militarily advanced, and they're going to be back on their feet, able to start doing certain things sooner than later. So it's like it's like they're strong, they're going to be left on their own, at least for the time being. And they've already experienced this, and I'm not saying they're immune, but they're like past the hard part of dealing with this. They know how to test for it now. They know how to detect it and try to prevent it if it springs back up. So it just seems like they're poised more than any other country, because so many powerful countries could become weak right now, and weak ones could become powerful, and countries could join together. There could be a world war, there could be a Great Depression, there could be a one world government, there could be all of the above.
There probably will be at least one of those, if not multiple.
The depression is almost guaranteed, no matter how.
Right. Yeah, and that's what's so interesting to think about, like this autocratic, response, is that we talked. I think Bjorn, you and I talked about it after 9/11. Noam Chomsky was asked, "Do you think this is an inside job?" And his answer was, "Every government in the world just gained the opportunity to tell their citizens, do you see this? Now you need us." So
terrorism.
Every government wins in a massive crisis like that because they get the opportunity to enact every one of their crisis measures, which is always an infringement on civil liberty. So that exchange, that pause of civil liberties is also a great time to enact all kinds of other things that people wouldn't normally go for. It's what happened after 9/11. It's a lot of things that happened in 2008, etc. At this point, to your point, Rob, China seems like, I wonder what that thing would be, what the catalyst would be, but China seems like they're in the position to flip that switch. I guess a vaccine, but I don't even know if that would really be the thing.
Well, if they come through on the world stage and say, this started here, but we were able to control it, and then when it got out of here, we were there to fix it. It will start to look like they've got an effective system to people who, at the end of the day, don't care too much about what it's called and what it looks like, as long as they have certain guarantees. Or
is that ultimately going to get, the question is that going to get them, the yen is now the new global currency. Like, what is the thing that is the switch that suddenly China is the new power?
Well, they could start having, what are they called, like client states or something, like just like turn everybody into like essentially a dependent, and then maybe absorb them into world centered in China. You know what I mean?
I mean, in a world where everybody functions on a relatively open market setup and real estate has a negotiated value in every country, all it takes is capital to procure that, and you can own large pieces of land and parts of countries, and I don't think that's a far-fetched thought either.
Well, especially because at a certain point they'll be thanking you for it.
Which is what is that? Can you take that further? Like, what do you mean?
So, like, for instance, like the chain and belt plan that China's been working on to build freeway connectivity situations, kind of throughout Eurasia, freeway and train, basically linking ports that didn't have road access and other things like that. And they also did an initiative across Africa where they have a east-west axis road that runs through kind of south central, like Namibia, I think Zambia, Mozambique, and they built it, and they asked all those governments to grant them concessions rights for 100 years along it, and so they have all of their markets now like lining this highway they just built, and they're selling all their stuff. And so it's like they literally put a strip of active commerce through the middle of countries that don't have much active commerce, and said, not only do you have transportation now to connect around to neighboring places and trade with them, but we got everything you need right here. Really smart, long-term, kind of subtle moves. And I think we live in a world where that sort of shit, that subtlety isn't really that subtle, but like that you think of as subtle because it wasn't overtly like a land grab or something like Russia going into the Ukraine, right? Like that sort of movement is going to be difficult to see if we're not at actual world war status. He got away with one there that I think that it's rarely repeated. I mean, as soon as Saddam tried to take Kuwait, we were up his ass. There hasn't been like Kashmir with Pakistan and India is such a hot spot, and if any of them really finally do lay claim to it, they're both going to war, and I mean India has laid claim to it, but like nobody's gonna land. They're not gonna land grab it back right now. That's not gonna be worth it for anybody, unless they want to engage in a full-scale conflict with everybody.
So you don't think China's in a position to take this step right now?
I think they're going to do it subtly. I think they're doing it economically. I think they know that they live in a world where they can create state corporations. They can go out and buy up lots of the rest of the fucking world. And they're going to continue promoting that. And maybe this is a test run. Like if you're talking the grand conspiracy like format, maybe this is just like, can we get everybody to know that when we say frog, they leave? And what are the requirements? What level of fear do we really have to get to make this a global clampdown and for all states to react in a similar manner? All right, now here's our test results. Next time, let's 4%, fatality rate and this type of rapidity of infection or something like that. Make a new corona.
So, but under that vision, it was made by China in that, like, it was not that they're taking advantage of the moment. No,
I'm never gonna. This is conjecture. Right. We can walk through conjecture all day long.
I know. I was just asking though. Is that like part of the package in that
that
illustration?
Seam, yeah. In that vein.
Yeah. Because any government could do it. I mean, or other party could create a virus. I mean, I don't know that they could technically. I don't know that kind of shit. But I mean, I wouldn't put it past really any government. They do all types of crazy shit. And to test it on their own citizens and have it go out of hand, isn't, out of the realm of possibility. So I mean, it could be, and it could be someone else planted it there, or that it was in other places already, but that's just where they like first put two and two together. I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of things there, but for now, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm people all around the world have been saying that they were having sicknesses in November and December, like really, really sick. And now they, that's kind of a common thread. Now people are saying, I had corona last fall in Dallas, or some shit,
Right. I mean, the question
is, like,
is that correct, or is it just something that's easy to believe for them? Like they just could easily believe that's what happened to them. I was just, I guess, going to say, like, in any case, when scaling back between 100 years from now and like 10-year periods and all that, which is interesting, the immediate future is also, kind of like really what determines all that. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like the pickle we're in is that if we don't like shelter in place or whatever we want to call it, isolation, then this thing is so contagious that it spreads to such a large portion of the population that not only are there a lot of people sick, but the real problem is that basically we literally just can't keep up. I mean, we're going to have bodies piling up everywhere that are contagious themselves, and hospitals that can't treat anybody for anything because there's just no, or, they start testing. I mean, it seems like the only way to fix things in any way is to get more tests than anything else. Like, that's kind of like the top priority, just testing everybody. But at a certain point, could be that they start having a fast acting test and they try to isolate the people who are positive,
The isolation isn't just a step in the process, right? The isolation is also that some people won't get the virus because they didn't get exposed. So, like, while it's still going to spread quickly and et cetera, when you think about the fact that the virus itself has a shelf life, right? One of the things that Jeremy, who's been on the podcast now, mentioned is that, think about, like, let's say if we could prove it, if it comes out eventually and we know the exact number, right? It's 3.5 days that coronavirus can live on a clear surface, right? Well, if you find out coronavirus is in a school and you just shut all the doors and you sanitize it and then you wait for 7 days, you know that scientifically the virus is dead. What we're dealing with isolation is the potential with enough people in quarantine that the virus itself dies on enough surfaces that aren't getting people walking through them all the time, and that hopefully enough people that do get exposed either don't have symptoms or go through treatment and survive, so that we have some general inoculation to the virus. However, we don't know if it's mutating with this much exposure to this many humans this quickly, which is one of the problems. But there is such a thing as us just waiting it out, right? Because the nature of the virus having a shelf life.
Sure. Yeah.
Mean that there is a part of the quarantine that could be the fix in and of itself.
Well, maybe so, but if it is, it'll take a lot of restraint, I guess,
right,
to happen here for an extended period of time, and it'll be, like right now, I think they passed a $2 trillion emergency rescue package or something, but at a certain point, when you have maybe another country like China who has an actual production economy, that's making stuff, and we're completely halted, and we're saying, oh, well, here we're printing money or doing whatever we're doing, it might become difficult to sustain that. And then it could be to a point where who knows what solutions are like the midpoint before, let's say, it running its course or whatever, because it gets extended by people's, the fact that there'll be certain states or counties or whatever who don't have a shelter in place anymore, even though like the recommendation is and everyone else does or something, or the guy like Bjorn was talking about, or you were talking about, Mishak, the asshole spreading it on purpose. Like all that stuff mixed together, combined with like the essential services, even paramedics and other people who have to go out, the delivery people and the grocery store workers, just all those exceptions could have it take some time to wait out, and so the longer that goes and the longer we're running on a even falser economy, I guess, so to speak, the more susceptible it seems we become to who knows what kind of influence or whatever else. So I think that's where it gets kind of interesting is, it could be that, let's say China has a long-term solution, but like you guys were kind of getting at the beginning, people tend to be ready for a hero or whatever in a case like this, even if that person isn't savory. And that doesn't have to necessarily be a person. So it could just be a system. Like if people felt like the world got saved by the Chinese system, that in itself could be such a springboard to, and then they could offer countries, hey, join our union and you'll have like these benefits will help you rebuild and prepare in these ways for future things. Whereas you could just be on your own, and who knows, even that could just not attract countries like ours, but maybe enough others that by the time this dust settles, we're looking at a world where there's a really big power like that didn't invade or annex or anything, but just absorbed,
And then the further like caveat could be with that, if we're looking at shifting like information, which is such a valuable weapon of exchange in this age, and what China has done in locking down their internet and creating their own Facebooks and their own et ceteras, what if when they go to a country they say to them, hey, we've got all this investment we want to make in your country, but if we can give you level C here, no sweat. We just want to get involved in this level. If we give you level B, we're going to ask you to do these things as far as what kind of information comes in your citizens see. And if you want level A, if you want all the money, then you play by our rules as far as information. So you shut down a bunch of the American internet. We'll tell you what information you can see. We'll create media streams and help you guys as replacements for your country. Now you got the Namibian Facebook, but if you want all this money, we want you to play this information game too. It's more subtle than it is just taking land now. It's controlling the way an economy operates. It's and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think people. Yeah. I think global conquest just looks a little different right now. Like the banking world is already globally, colonized every state.
Yeah, it's just an opportune moment to recolonize from some other, shuffle the deck, I guess, is what it kind of comes down to. But, so that's all based on the idea that things get bad. And it's like, what does bad look like? And, it could be a lot of different things. But I guess it does seem simultaneously like there's a lot of potential for very positive things to happen too, where like people just come to the realization that this shit where we're fighting each other, we're discriminating against each other, we're not, fighting for each other to have basic needs covered like healthcare and whatever else. We're not banding together to deal with climate change. We're not therefore prepared for an unexpected global catastrophe, and those things actually can happen. All those realizations could lead to a very like positive kind of thing where there's like almost like a people's movement that borrows from the Arab Spring, so to speak, and borrows from other social movements that have happened, and uses the connectivity, the internet, the information, the everything, and finds a way to situate itself, and
I like
bully
that.
or push all the rest of the world into its model as it solves the problem in a more humane whatever way. But the climate change is a big thing, first of all, because it's just the next or current simultaneous problem. And if we can't figure this out, to get this virus thing sorted out, climate change will get us in the meantime anyway. And then, what about this? Does it not kind of feel like this is an alien invasion? With it's like the equivalent of a really slow moving alien invasion, and how it feels like the time it takes for people to grasp what's going on. And I don't know, there's just something about it that's funny. It has like,
it is also a really perfect jumping off point for AI further taking over things. We've discussed through like science fiction-y topics having AI manage food resources and things like that. What if AI with that level of insight can micro target without testing? Rob, you've got it, or you very much need to get tested because you were in proximity with Jimmy, and we read his temperature when he walked down the street the other day, and he's high. So you like that type of like immediate oversight and response system that could shut a viral infection down before it spread out of your neighborhood.
When you said that at first, the thing about AI, I totally misunderstood and thought, which is an interesting thing in my mind, that you might mean, what if AI was behind the virus?
Oh.
It was like artificial intelligence that said, this is our moment.
It says, AI is kind of virus-like in a interesting way. It carries the capacity to replicate and things like that, but it doesn't do the normal things that life does. So it carries its capacity to influence things like a virus does to a cell,
right?
With its system of messaging, etc., and its DNA. But an artificial intelligence also doesn't like require food or excrete or have a natural reproductive cycle of its own, those hallmarks of life, right? So AI is kind of viral in an interesting way. I hadn't thought about that before.
Yeah. Or it could be that AI, instead of being the solution, becomes the winner just because it goes, oh, wait. Yeah. Or it does what you're saying. It starts out where they use artificial intelligence solutions to pinpoint cases and help, get ahead of the thing. And then that AI system becomes so smart on how to determine whether a person lives or dies that it just cleverly uses that to its advantage until it's basically got a population it can enslave and put into pods like on the Matrix.
Yeah.
What if AI turns out to be the solution?
Well, that's Bjorn was saying that,
inside of the hospital, right? Like what we're seeing lately is nurses and doctors and especially in New York, who describe the scene in hospitals as a war zone, and some of the nurses and doctors having breakdowns and needing to take time off and etc. What if the solution here is that China or somebody comes up with some fucking doctor robot AI that like can run a hospital without nurses and doctors?
Well, that would be interesting. Just hook everybody up to the machine that's part of the main.
It's another thing out of Idiocracy, where he's like, all right, put this one in your mouth, put this one in your ass. Oh, no. Put this one in your mouth.
Right.
Sorry. It's also Idiocracy these days. We've got to find moments to like make light of this shit. It gets so oppressive.
I agree. I think as pessimistic or as depressing as this might sound, I think we're in for a long haul, and I think we have to get ready for a new world that has already started. that like I put this article yesterday and I didn't post it because I don't have a blog or anything. I was just kind of journaling. But
you don't have a blog, you have Twitter or something, right?
I have tons of them, but like, yeah. But what I thought about was like on 9/11, right after I heard the news reports, I was driving to school, to technical college. I called my mom. She was teaching at a school. She said she was watching the news with her class. And I realized looking back later that by the time I called my mom on September 11th, 2001, we were already in a post 9/11 world. We were already there.
Yeah. Right.
Just didn't know it yet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like we are already in a post-virus world. But when did it start exactly?
I don't know, but last week when I was on our episode, Super Negative Nancy, that was for me maybe the day or the day before or even 2 days before, it just hit me like, this is the post-COVID world, and it's Wild West in terms of what it might be. Who knows? Yeah,
we don't know what this new world is, but we know that it's a new world at this point.
I mean, of some sort.
I think that's the thing to me, is that we are still in the incubation period of this new world. The article that I wrote was just kind of thinking through, like, what is this new place? And then the next question is, what do we want it to be? Like, there are all kinds of changes that are now on the table, right? What if it's no longer a viable business plan to own a grocery store that doesn't run on subscription basis with sterilized packaging to your door and et cetera, but it's just a grocery store where they have food in it. People just won't go there anymore, so that's just not a viable business. What if that's the outcome? What if that's one of many, many, many outcomes?
Yeah.
Scenario that, like, the fundamental basic ideas of society are fundamentally shifted now, and we just don't know what the new ones are.
Right.
And like education, entertainment, banking, food, hospitals,
rituals,
like all kinds of rituals, all like handshakes and like all kinds of things.
Parties.
Just hugs. Everything changes now.
Yeah.
How do you get back on a subway? How do public buses work now? How does anything work now in this new world? And if we don't decide what we want it to be like, somebody else will.
Yeah. It's already happening. So you have to do it simultaneously and have your idea win in that competition. I 100% agree. Like 200% agree. And I would wonder, what about if, a model of government that's the right blend of the necessary organization and freedom is born from it? Because when we argue about libertarianism in our conversations, a lot of the time we talk about like the fire department and whatever else. The reason the fire department is one of those arguments is because you go, well, if there was a fire, which does happen, fires happen, it's not some fantasy thing or some conspiracy, you want your house to be not burning down and your family dying in the house. So therefore we generally see, and I think the three of us tend to argue that like libertarians on that level tend to be drawing the line somewhere. So it's like, does that line just get drawn way further out in a new world where like grocery stores, banks, gas stations are actually state-run things, primarily just because there's the new understanding that we need these things no matter what, like delivery, like those things feel a lot more like utilities in a free society, right? Like, since we're not getting a ration of food, we've got to go get our own. If there's no place to get our own, then we're in a tough spot. If people who work at the place where you get your own are either not going to work or dying because they're unsafe, then they're not going to be there long and there won't be a place to get food. If people delivering the food, the truckers, the whatevers, like there's so many chinks in that armor or links in that chain, I should say, that like, matter, that it would make sense to me. I could understand or hear an argument where that stuff should be a nationalized part of society. And you might even say, with analogies to war, that a type of conscription where people, in a lot of countries in Europe even, there's compulsory military service. But what if, you had to serve as a delivery driver for a year or two, or you could be a grocery clerk, or you could be whatever. But those were the, functional things you got drafted into in a compulsory model like that, for state-run businesses that helped ensure that no matter what happens to us, we're going to be able to do this. You know what I mean? It will require forcing some people and sometimes to do things that they're not totally in charge of, but it's a limited band that everybody can kind of.
Like we podcast before, we related this to technology, but we talked in this cast before about the idea of an opt-in versus opt-out society. That
Right.
at this point, like economics would work and commerce would work so digitally that, and we're kind of almost already there, that if you don't have a digital card of some sort, a debit or a credit card, you kind of just can't function the same way in society as someone who does have one.
Yeah.
What if the opt-in, opt-out society is actually going to be about vaccines? What if the way to opt into society, to be allowed to walk into a grocery store, is to have your card that shows all the vaccines that you've had recently? And if you don't have your updated card, you're just not allowed around other people. What if, the question came up in several conversations with friends of mine this week of, if this turns out to be a vaccine that is proven it works and it is now mandated, you have to go and get this vaccine as an American citizen. What do you think about that? And the view is so mixed. It's so amazingly mixed. It's not a one or the other. It's all over the place. So what if that's the war that we're fighting? Is that this new kind of opt-in, opt-out society is based on invisible, factors for every human that have to be constantly proven. There's fucking thermometers at every TSA check.
But you can't, if there are that many opt-outers in your society, then the opt-inners are the ones that have to protect themselves. And so it really depends on what level that minority exists within any said community, because it makes, if you have people that just want to flaunt that level of social health in your face, you can't coexist with them without protecting yourself, right?
Even in the scenario that we were just describing, the government takes over all the gas stations and grocery stores. They already have all the, the public libraries and etc. If there's just a much larger swath of American society that is run by a centralized government, and that centralized government requires vaccinations to walk into the buildings.
It does. It has to, because I think I'm remembering this right. It's life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, right?
No, guns.
No, you got it backwards. It's money, and then fame, and then God.
Okay, shit. Thanks for throwing fame in there. I like that.
Yeah.
Liberty is, although somewhat nebulous, also, you can it's easy to kind of put your finger on it. It's like not having choices that don't fuck with others, fucked with. Live your life, man. Do your own damn thing. And
great.
What?
I said we're rewriting it. I like this.
Right. And then the pursuit of happiness is kind of in the same vein. It's like they're kind of similar. Having a life of liberty is probably doing things that bring you happiness, I imagine, and don't fuck with others. So those two, albeit nebulous terms, you kind of put into that, all right, I get how our government has to behave towards its people. Kind of let them do what they want unless they're fucking with each other. And then you have to have a law. Life, however, is far more easily definable because there's life and there's not life, right? And that not life is no longer life anymore. So the government, every American who's ever died, the government took their fucking rights away. Failed
the government
miserably.
Yes, the government just failed to guarantee them
that,
their rights on a long term. That's true. We should sue. We should talk to a lawyer and sue the government.
Collectively.
Just what it needs right now. A clever and effective lawsuit.
Life.
That's
Y'all
a great.
haven't done well on it.
Well, there's the slogan for the national government get your vaccine campaign. Dead people can't vote. Get your shot.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that. Or dead people only vote in Florida. So move there. You ghost ass motherfuckers.
Hey, ghosts are cool.
Yeah, you're right. But like to Rob's thread and like the idea of like life being this like right that the government has a responsibility to maintain in a certain way, like food, clothing, shelter, like water, all of the absolute like gots to have to live, medicines, treatments, all the vaccines, all the time.
What's
as
left?
Soon as they're hot, drone just flies in. You got a vaccine. What's that?
Football.
Football.
You got it. That's important. If the government doesn't take football over, baseball can stay a private thing.
Yeah, baseball. Yeah. Fuck baseball. We're done with it.
Yeah,
we're from the town of Mariners, so we're done with it too.
Yeah. Well, I think sports. Excuse me. Sports is gonna have a hard time for a little while anyway, because people are like, "Yeah, go to a big stadium and like open the bathroom door and that kind of." I don't know.
Can we just put a historic flag? Since we do this a lot, we give opinions about things, and the next day, the like history just like pulls the rug out from under us. I just want to like call out something that, to your point, Rob. As of right now, baseball is canceled, basketball, hockey, the Olympics, like cartoons,
everything but football.
Everything is canceled, right? The NFL has kept every one of their deadlines in the off season. They have the luxury of being in the off season right now, but the NFL draft is coming up. They didn't change the start of the NFL season, which is March 18th. The NFL draft is coming up. The NFL owners are now fighting with all of the general managers. The owners want the thing to happen as planned. The GMs are saying, this is insane. Please stop all this nonsense. We need to pump the brakes because we can't meet with people in person. We can't test them. We can't do it. Like, what are we talking about? And meanwhile, the NFL is saying to everybody, we're just moving on as planned. We're going to have the season as planned. All the dates are happening as planned. Every fucking thing else is stopped. But the NFL is just like, let's go.
That's crazy. That's absurd.
NCAA football is canceled. Everything else is canceled. NFL is like, don't care.
Gotta have our Hunger Games. By the way, you may have noticed I'm drinking regular beer again because we are mid-apocalypse.
Mid-apocalypse.
No time to drink. Have non-alcoholic beer.
This is no time to wait.
I struggle to argue with that. Like it's hardly a time to comb one's hair, or like to take a shower. You know what I mean? It's just like whatever. Like oh yeah, there's holes in my socks. Like, well, what are socks actually for? Like at the end of the day, there's still a barrier between my foot and the shoe, and I guess that's kind of what matters. That kind of thing. Just where you're suddenly reevaluating everything. You're just like, even the toilet paper
we
thing.
We put a lot of stock in weird ass stuff in this society.
Okay, so check this out. What about thought exercise wise, for the sake of levity and fun? you think about like the absolute best case scenario that's like within the way things kind of already are, the status quo somehow sustaining itself, rather than like a crazy revolution or just disastrous, you know, end of the world, but just like what would like just kind of baseline look like. And I think even in that world, and I think this kind of speaks to Mishak, your questions about, you know, how do you get on the subway again and stuff like, what if it's just subtle things from these traumas? So in a lot of parts of Asia in the last, I don't know how long, but at least 2 decades, if not 3 or 4 or more or way more, people wear masks when they're sick. You know what I mean? So that they don't spread disease. And that just never took off in the Western world, so to speak. You know, wearing a mask made you look like a weirdo. Well, I could see that being just a very modest thing that could change culturally, where all of a sudden that's just totally accepted. I mean, the ice has been broken. We've seen people with masks. We don't think they look like freakers anymore. We're ready for it.
I did my part in that.
I think that's
I did a small.
You wore a mask,
but I will admit that I kind of chickened out after I did it.
Okay.
So I've done this twice now. I'm in a situation, as we've talked about, where I'm not interacting with a lot of humans. So I've kind of passed, before today, I've passed counting days where I'm like 8 days or so in from interacting with very many humans. It's not likely that I've been exposed to the virus at this point. But today I had to go into town and get fuel for the generator and propane and etc. And I remembered 2.5, maybe 3 weeks ago, probably 3 weeks ago, in Livermore, when I was getting ready to move and I was organizing some stuff, and I had to drop some stuff off at the Goodwill. I asked Jeremy, my cousin, for a mask. I said, I got to go to Goodwill. I'd rather not walk through Goodwill right now, but I got to drop some stuff off. I grabbed a mask from him. I went to the outside of Goodwill and walked up, and like there was somebody else in line in front of me, so I waited in my car. They left. I went in and dropped off my thing with a mask on, and the lady came to the door, and she jumped, kind of startled with current news happening. I dropped off the thing. I said, I'm fine, just, can't be too careful. Have a great day. I walked off, and I looked over my shoulder as I left, and she didn't touch my bag and like put her hands up and walked away from it. Probably went and told somebody, hey, this just happened or whatever, and like suspiciously found a way to get rid of whatever I just dropped off, right? The 2 pairs of shoes or whatever. Today, when I went to the gas station, I was wearing gloves, I had a mask, and my thought was, I haven't kind of been in civilization in the last week. I don't know if everybody's wearing masks in public, I kind of don't, I can't imagine people not being in some way protected or whatever. I spent half the morning figuring out how to order delivery groceries, but I went to the gas station and I had this surgical mask around my neck. I pulled it up to pump gas and do the whole thing, with gloves on, and then I walked into the place and no one was wearing a mask. The person behind the counter was wearing gloves, but the lady behind her was at least in her 60s or 70s, not wearing a mask, not wearing gloves, not wearing, like running around or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I started to have this exchange with her. So I pulled my mask down to be polite, and then now we're having this exchange and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what was the point of this?
Yeah. If as soon as I got actually interacting with someone,
then I went outside and I was getting propane, and the gentleman who came up to fill up the propane tanks was clearly in his like late 70s, potentially 80s. And so like I immediately put the mask on and just backed up because I don't know what the fuck I just encountered in that store.
Yeah.
It's he's walking in the middle of it, and I feel like I'm the fucking weirdo here.
Well, what's funny is even though in this instance you're in the woods, in a weird way, everybody is in that same boat right now where it's or a lot of people. Like for me, I walk the dog, so I'm outside. frequently, but I don't go to establishments. I haven't for the last, other than necessary groceries, I haven't for like 2+ weeks probably. Before it was like necessary, we were just like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. Like, let's not go out. And I don't know when I go to the store what it's going to be like. And I was pretty surprised. Like I went to Fred Meyer on Monday, and it was like people everywhere. A lot of the staff at the store didn't have any type of masks or gloves or anything like that. People sharing, the aisle. Obviously, it's a busy store, and it was just like I don't have a mask. I wasn't gonna wear one, but I don't like touching the packages, being around the people. I'm just freaked out by all of it, but I don't have a choice because like we got to get food periodically, so I'm gonna go to the store now and again. But even the toilet paper, for the last 2 weeks, it was out when I went to Fred Meyer the first time completely. They converted their aisle that they do toilet paper to be more like Costco, where it has like the pallet, like the huge rack spaces for product.
So they don't have to unload it. They just bring it in the truck, put it in there.
Right. And the entire aisle completely out of any toilet paper a week and a half ago, and then this time as well. And I started being like, well, shit. Like, no pun intended. Did the last time I saw toilet paper available, was that the last time in my life that I saw it? Like all these little teeny nuance questions and experiences and like discoveries that happen while you're out there. Like today I had to go to the store again because we ran out of dog food, had to order some online. It didn't show up in time. So we're like, we're going to make him some food, so I went to the store to get some chicken for that. And they had on the keypad for the debit card machine, they taped a Ziploc bag over the keys.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen that a couple places.
And I was thinking to myself, like, okay, I appreciate the sentiment here. Like, this is nice. You don't want people to, I guess, get sick using this machine. But like, what would make it safer for me to touch a Ziploc bag? As I said that, I think I just realized the trick. They wipe off the bag between customers, maybe, or that's the thing.
You think they do?
Well, it had a sign. When I entered the store, they had a sign that said, please bear with us as we clean between each customer.
Okay.
At QFC. So I don't know. It might, now that I'm saying it, have been, then they can just spray it with their bottle of disinfectant, after each customer or whatever, so that it theoretically has been cleaned and it's easier to do that than the actual keypad. I don't know. Otherwise, it's the weirdest concept in the world. Yeah. We're just going to put a plastic bag on top of it and call it good.
Okay, so here's my vaccines exactly for that reason. Do we want to live in a world that evolves away from human contact? Or are we willing to fight for whatever it takes to maintain a society that is based on human contact? Because our physical evolution is incredibly dependent on contact with each other. Our hormones are based on it. Our brain releases chemicals based on it. Our experience is based on touching each other in various experiences. It's a huge part of humanity. Are we willing to fight for that? Or are viruses going to be the thing that eliminates that aspect of humanity and human community? Human contact has been proven in thousands of studies to like benefit healing, to benefit like child rearing, to benefit psychology, all kinds of things, right? But human contact is how these germs and how these viruses can spread and potentially kill us.
Yeah.
Without a vaccine, we can't have human contact.
Yeah. It's interesting, and it's hard to say, but what if that meant there was no more war, which is a dumb thing because war isn't based on contact anymore, but, soldiers couldn't go fight each other because it was too close to a contact.
Yeah.
That's silly.
Right.
Anyway,
no,
good
now
question.
It's push button, joysticks at a distance.
Drone stuff. I don't know. I think people are happy if they can have a partner and family that they can be around, because that's the one thing is the virus can't really do that. It's really hard for people who are, alone to have the contact, but a family isn't going to in the same house. They don't really benefit from not contact or from lack of contact. Like for us here with my son and my wife, it's like if one of us has it, I mean, come on, we all got it.
Yeah.
Like, so we can't be avoiding contact. It wouldn't be prudent.
In a weird way, that's exactly like the strange like beauty of all of this, is that while we're all quarantined, families break every fucking rule in the book. They're not staying 6 feet from each other. They're cuddling up on the couch and watching TV and sharing hot chocolate and fucking whatever. Like they're defying everything. Humans are defying everything when all the lines get drawn and just said, like, we're going to do this together. Whatever happens, this is happening together. But like that to me is the hope in the middle of all this. Like as pessimistic as the situation seems, is that there is some evidence that humans are surviving this together. And not just a little bit of evidence, but most of us are. And most of us are surviving not only like the virus, but the economy and the shifts and the politics and the whole thing by staying together. Not to be too corny, but like that's the thing that gives me hope in the situation. That even playing all the thought exercises is that the overwhelming, like the wave beyond the crash, the force that pushes the wave to the beach before you see the white cap of, the force pushing back. The wave that's pushing forward is people getting together, is people finding a way to communicate with each other, connect with each other, reach out, share, find a way to join together. Hopefully that's the wave that actually shifts the society that we want on the other side of this. But the backlash is all this other nonsense, the separation, the us and them, and the fucktard walking through Walmart with spreading AIDS or whatever.
Well,
that's backlash. But most of us are trying to stay together.
And this is the time when the digital age can provide that. So, like, it's had the capacity, but while the rest of society is kind of hummed along, it hasn't needed to be the way that we kept friendships and kept communication. But my girlfriend just today has had 2 meetings, one with a group of 5 where they cooked dinner together that she's been doing now, and earlier a birthday party for a friend back on the East Coast that had like 20 people on a Zoom conversation, all talking over each other. And she performed a little dance party for them and like had the freaking time of her life. If this was not this scenario, envelope, she would have been not involved in any celebration for that friend's birthday. That friend's birthday would have taken place back in that town and a few people would have come. So now there were people from all across the country at this thing. She was going around, like the birthday girl was like, you're in Seattle, you're in Miami, you're in da-da-da, you're in, oh, my friends are all over the place. And that is a unique experience that didn't happen in the past because it didn't need to. And now because even the friends on the East Coast can't have a party, this is how the party's going to transpire. And I think if you're looking for moments of positivity and like levity, it's in finding a way for humans to use their technology in a way that's actually more positively social. And, instead of hiding to ourselves all the time. Like, I'm an internet lurker. When I'm on Facebook or Instagram, I'm a non-contributor. Occasionally I hit like. I mean, that is it.
Yeah.
And that's not participating, but I think a lot of us haven't felt like, okay, we're in this age and we'll look at it and be involved in some way, but like participating just has felt awkward. And I think
And you say
a lot of people will break that barrier now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people of that mindset have thought like, well, this is the real world. Like you're living in the fantasy world, and now there's a thinner line between those. Speaking of the Daily, they had a short episode. I think it was Friday last week. I don't know if you caught it, Mishak, but it was like a 7 minute extra or something. It wasn't their regular podcast, and it was about I can't remember. I don't know the name of the dude, but he was just saying he's been following, or he had been at that point. Uh, what Bjorn you were just describing, like all these different ways people are connecting and doing things. And how I think the way he put it, which again, there's always all these cliches and this kind of things, but he was like, I don't want to miss this moment to acknowledge how we're being alone together. You know what I mean? And how that psychologically is impacting like society, because everyone is alone, but they can be together, and he had like clips of different religious services being held by like Zoom meeting parties like that. I think like cooking classes, yoga, different things, that just people are doing in that way that they weren't doing before. And even for us, like, our grandparent or our son's grandparents have been, FaceTiming with him every day or two, for the most part. And as well with his cousins, like stuff that he hasn't done very often, periodically, but not like a daily thing. And now it's almost like when he is sitting in his high chair eating, he's usually like having the meal with a family member, somewhere else, just because it's like he can. It doesn't,
Yeah.
So it's like something we didn't do before.
Cool.
The internet was built for loners and isolated nerds by themselves, finding ways to connect in ways that were different from the societal norms. And now those tools that have been designed by those people who were isolated and separated and etc. can serve us when we're all feeling isolated and separated. It's a community that's built on people trying to connect and find the signal in the noise, and somebody else like me. That's what designed the internet. It's what designed the social aspect, at least, of the internet. Chat rooms and message boards, throughout the history. Yeah, have been designed on people trying to find someone who I can connect with and who I connect with deeply. Skype has been that for the three of us. So I think what's happening now is the human spirit, again, not to be too corny, is just using the opportunity to find another way to connect.
Yeah.
What'll be interesting on the other side of this is now what are the new rules of the game in this post-corona world? How do we now connect? Because that's going to be the thing we have to do. So how do we do it?
Well, it's hard to imagine if things do go even moderately well that people don't have a good balance of appreciating the here and now kind of moments, because we'll have been through a period where that's not really possible. But as well, the opposite, like these kind of things, like it'll still feel like connecting with someone to be apart, but at the same time, you'll probably be more inclined not to have your phone out or whatever when you're hanging out with a friend or something, because, at least for a time, it'll be so novel in itself, like, fuck, weird. I'm hanging out with people. Like, oh my God, I just gave that guy 5. What the fuck?
Yeah. Just touch skin.
Yeah.
Slap hands.
It could, yeah. Interestingly, and it could kind of inspire people who maybe have been more introverted in our new tech era, where you can just go home from work and watch TV and be online playing a game and do that, 5 days a week, and then watch TV the other 2 entirely and not interact with anybody but your work colleagues. And kind of remind those people that being social is like something to be gotten after. Like, humans are particularly interested in that, and like everybody was in the boat with you now on this like isolation thing. And hey, come on out, man. Come on out on a Friday evening, you know, come to your place, your local hangout and meet a few people over a drink. And I don't know, man. We need the nerds now in this world more than ever. All those isolated nerds, like y'all, we need y'all.
Get to work.
Yeah, unfortunately, none of them watch the Flawedcast. It's all unnerds.
It's all
This message
Only
just will not.
Jocks only.
cool.
Yeah,
Watch the Flawedcast.
yeah. So it wouldn't reach nerds. Sadly, even if we had an urgent message for them, it would just completely not connect, which is just unfortunate.
That is unfortunate.
Well, I mean, I think things are moving quickly enough that by next week, who knows? We might all be in the same bunker. So,
Yeah.
Well, and next week's also like right before Easter. So,
yeah,
after
everything's
that,
gonna be fine.
gone from the bunker back to everything being normal.
Yeah.
So basically, we have one more Corona cast
Before we're back to church. Yeah.
we're back to normal. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yep.
Like, you remember that time, guys, where we predicted that Hillary Clinton was gonna just sweep the elections?
You think this is
Vaguely,
that?
it sounds familiar.
Yeah, I was just that just came to mind. No reason.
Yeah.
No
Not
reason.
wishful. Yeah, well,
Those were the days.
that was a lot more likely than what your boy believes is going to be happening here, but we'll see. We'll see.
Well,
Oh,
at
man.
some point, come give me a hug.
Yeah.
Cabin in the middle of
Yeah,
nowhere.
there you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Quick thing to leave you on. I saw somebody with a Facebook post, and it said, I've been watching all types of TV or whatever, Netflix all day, and the only thing I keep thinking is those people are standing way too close to one another.
It's hella true.
New world.
Yeah, and in your Netflix television voyages, gentlemen, watch a little bit of the Tiger King, and so we can at least kind of discuss a little bit of that, because that's at least as popular right now as the coronavirus.
Right.
And I'm
Maybe
sure
it'll be
Flawed
what beats
Nation
it.
wants to hear
What
our
if it's an
take.
anecdote? Yeah.
It couldn't have come along at like a more perfect time. Like, the main character is just so desperate for stardom, and now like all of a sudden in his life here his shit gets released when the coronavirus happens, and so everybody's at home watching
Wow,
his
man,
shit.
that is an interesting fate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that means we need to do the dog one right away.
Oh yeah.
Puppy needs to hit.
What's that?
There's a character.
Wild puppy needs to hit the market right away. That's what.
I missed that.
Your
somehow,
puppy?
Wild puppy. The dog.
Oh God, yeah, it does.
but Flawedcast Productions about to drop that on the world in a little bit here.
Holler at that gentleman and see what we can convince of him.
We need to make that happen.
Yeah. Well, until then,
Yeah.
that's a little mystery to leave the nation with, because they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they will find out one day, and they'll go back to this episode, they'll watch it again, and they'll go, that shit was genius.
In fact, Mishak, if you can initiate any levels of contact in that regard, that might be the most appropriate foray into getting there. Down.
Will do.
I like walking around in cast, and y'all.
Yeah, very Blair Witch.
More off.
Hi.
What up? Oh.
It's very
Down
Blair
in the basement.
If you just went black and white and started running for your life, it would all make sense.
Yeah.
And we do more like rap dance music videos while we're fucking running around. You see me to this invisible beat? Ooh, that doesn't make sense because you can't see what you can't hear.
It feels like a weird, like, first person view, like, dating app. Kind of like we're dancing in your garage, like, as a test for, like, be able to get out of the corona.
Oh, okay. Time out. Just a real quick extension of the show then. It's called, so there's a show on Netflix called Love is Blind, and it's about courting someone where you can't see them and then getting engaged immediately
Yeah.
after. What you're talking about,
Love
Mishak,
it.
is Love by Body Cam, and the contestants have a camera so that their friends can see the person and their reaction, but they themselves are like blindfolded or can't see, and then they have an earpiece, and their friends are telling them like, "Oh, he's, like he's dancing around you," and
Take the camera more.
yeah.
Love
That
it.
one's a winner for sure. Yeah, don't steal that idea, Nation.
Yeah.
It's time to inventify a lot of motherfucking shit these days. Inventify.
Yeah.
It's all
That is what time it is.
how to
For
reinvent
sure.
everything. I'm working on it.
Okay, please.
Reinventify yourself, America.
Yeah, get that done.
Well,
Um,
for next week, any predictions for how the world will look next week, 7 days from now? That seems like an eternity right now to me. How do you guys, by the next Flawedcast, the world is going to look?
It'll be more of the same.
I am willing to bet we are looking at what we will call right now code yellow, and by next week we'll be in code red.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the data, the charts just guarantee that. So, yeah.
I hope we can be just fucking optimistic all the way through this, because it looks fucking scary as shit.
Yeah. Well, we can at least make jokes.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're gonna. Every day is a new one. I know that's corny and cliche, but like every moment is also a new moment. Therefore, a new moment, and there ain't nothing at the end of that sequence of all those moments better than celebrating as many of them as you can. And we'll remind ourselves of that, nation.
Empty glass. But cheers.
We should start every episode with Bjorn singing and end every episode dancing with Bjorn.
Yay! I'm into it. I've been slacking on the intro sings, though. Y'all need to remind me.
Oh, sorry. We'll get that done next time.
Okay.
Bjorn's song in 3, 2.
Send me some lyrics. And this gonna be the end of the Flawedcast, my friend. See you next week. Better hope the world on the mend, but I don't think so, not at all. No, looking like we about to follow. Better call your homies. Better try to find some Waldos. It's looking bad, but don't be sad. Shit's going crazy. Better call your dad.
I really like the Find Some Waldos. I think that's the name of this episode.
That got me.
By the way, final thing. There was a meme and it had Waldo in a social distancing situation. Like there was just like 6 people in the picture and then Waldo like
really good.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's really good.
Blessings be, and we will catch up ASAP.
Indeed.
All
All
right,
love.
y'all.
Cheers. Peace.